Have you ever felt like you want to change, truly, genuinely change? But after a few days, you find yourself back with the same habits, the same thoughts, and the same behavior. And then you start thinking, maybe this is just who I am. Maybe I can never change. But what if I told you that this is the biggest lie? What if I told you that your brain is not fixed like a rock, but more like clay, constantly changing its shape with every experience? For years, scientists believed that after a certain age, the brain became fixed. Once a habit was formed, it stayed. Once a personality was developed, it stayed. But then, research revealed something completely different, something that changed our entire understanding. Scientists discovered that the brain constantly rewires itself. It creates new connections, weakens old connections, and gradually rebuilds itself. This is called... But now, listen to the good news. The same rule works in the opposite direction too. If you practice gratitude every day, your brain starts to become stronger at it. If you train your focus, your brain becomes better at focusing. If you take actions that build confidence, confidence can gradually become a neural pathway. Now, here is a deeper truth. Your personality is not a permanent identity. Now imagine that you walk down the same road every single day. Gradually, that road becomes clearer and stronger. But if you start choosing a new path, at first it feels difficult, strange, and uncomfortable, because the brain prefers the old pathway. But if you keep walking on the new path, what happens? Slowly, Now ask yourself one question. If your brain can truly change, then what direction are you taking it in today? Because the truth is, you are training your brain every single day, whether you realize it or not. The brain that changes itself tells us that the brain is always learning. It never goes. Now imagine a person who panics over small problems. They become afraid of every challenge. They break down after every setback. At first, maybe this was simply a reaction, but after being repeated for years, it became part of their personality. Here is another deep truth. Your brain loves efficiency. It doesn't want to make a completely new decision every single time, so it creates habits to save energy. That is why driving a car feels difficult at first, but after a few months, it becomes automatic. Typing feels difficult in the beginning, but eventually your fingers move almost by themselves. Now, imagine two people. Both of them fail. The first person thinks, I am useless. The second person thinks, I need to learn something new. The same event, but two complete... Now, here is a powerful realization. The struggles in your life may not be purely emotional. They may also be neurological. Your brain may be stuck in an old pattern, an old fear, an old belief, an old reaction. And until the pattern changes... Now, imagine that from today, you start observing your thoughts. You start observing your reactions. And every time you ask yourself, is this my conscious choice, or is this just an old... Now, here is another hidden truth. The brain doesn't change overnight. It changes through repetition, through small actions, through small decisions, through small victories. That is why transformation often doesn't... And this leads to another realization. Maybe your limitations are not permanent. Maybe your brain can still change far more than you ever imagined. And if that is true, then a much bigger question appears. Why do so many people remain stuck in the same place for years? Why do the same fears, the same habits, and the same problems keep returning to their... Now imagine a road in the middle of a jungle. People have been walking along the same road for years. What happens? That road becomes wider, stronger, and eventually it becomes the natural choice. But if you suddenly want to create a new road, what happens at first? There are bushes, obstacles, and confusion. Now imagine someone who has spent years telling themselves, I am not confident. I can't speak in front of people. I am not a leadership type person. And then one day, they decide, now I am going to change. What happens? On the first day, confidence will not feel natural because the brain is still operating. Now here is another deep truth. Your brain doesn't believe in fairness. Your brain believes in familiarity. That is why people sometimes remain trapped even in situations that hurt them. Pain can be. Now think about how many times you have started changing only to return to your old patterns after a few days. Why? Because the old pattern was strong, while the new pattern was still weak. That doesn't mean you failed. Now imagine someone going to the gym. If they exercise for only 5 days and say, my body isn't changing, would that sound logical? Of course not, because we understand that changing the body takes time. Now, here is another powerful realization. Your future will not be decided only by your goals. Your future will also be shaped by the neural pathways you are creating today. Every time you choose discipline, a pathway becomes stronger. Every time you resist distraction, a pathway becomes. Now imagine this. What if, for the next year, you trained your brain a little better every day, thought a little better, reacted a little better, acted a little better? What would happen? Maybe you're. And this brings us to one of the most fascinating ideas in this book. You are not a prisoner of your brain. You are the architect of your brain. And this realization can completely change a person's life. Because the day you understand the brain that changes itself shows us that the human brain is far more adaptable than we imagine. But there is a catch. The brain changes, but not always in the direction you want. The brain changes in the direction. Now imagine a small stream of water flowing through the same place every day. Slowly, it creates a deep channel in the ground. Eventually, the water automatically follows that path. Neural pathways in the brain develop similarly. Here is another deep truth. A large part of your life is not controlled by conscious decisions. It is controlled by habits, by automatic patterns. The way you think every morning, the way you react to every challenge, the way you behave under stress, these are often not fully conscious choices. They are brain programs. That means courage isn't necessarily a gift. Courage can become a trained brain response. Confidence isn't magic. Confidence can also become a trained. Now, here is another hidden truth. The brain doesn't change only through action. It also changes through attention. Where your attention goes, your neural energy follows. And wherever that neural energy goes, that pathway becomes stronger. So, if you focus on fear all day, now think about what you consume every day, what you watch, what you listen to, and the kind of people you spend time with. All of these things are shaping your brain, slowly and silently, often before you even realize it. Now imagine that for the next 6 months, you give your brain content that promotes growth. You give it thoughts that increase possibilities. Now the picture is becoming clearer. Your biggest limitation is not your age. It is not your past. It is not always your circumstances. Sometimes your biggest limitation is simply an old wiring pattern. And the good news is that whatever can be. The brain that changes itself keeps reminding us that the brain respects history, but it is not a slave. Now imagine a person who has spent years thinking they are weak. They have avoided every challenge. They have been afraid of every opportunity. And then, one day, they decide, now I am going to give my brain new evidence through small actions. What happens? Maybe nothing much happens on the first day. Maybe not even during the first week. Now here is another deep truth. Your brain doesn't believe your words as much as it believes your repeated experiences. That is why positive affirmations alone are not enough if there is no action behind them. Because the brain asks, where's the proof? And action provides the proof. Imagine telling yourself, now here is another hidden truth. The brain often treats discomfort like an enemy, but growth is frequently hidden inside discomfort. Learning a new skill is uncomfortable. Public speaking is uncomfortable. Discipline is... Now, imagine if the muscles in a gym could talk. During growth, they would probably feel discomfort too, because strength comes after stress. The brain works similarly. Mental strength. Now, here is a powerful realization. Every day, you are voting for the brain you are becoming. Every action is a vote. Every habit is a vote. Every decision is a vote. A vote for whom? For the person you are becoming. When you choose discipline, now imagine that for the next 12 months, you start voting for your future self. What happens? Slowly, your brain creates new wiring, new habits, and new... Now the picture is becoming even clearer. Change isn't a miracle, but the ability of the brain to change is a kind of miracle, because it means that no matter where you are today, you are not forced. And if that is true, perhaps you need to change the way you look at your life. Maybe until now you were looking at your past to determine your future. I have always been like this. I failed before. One of the most inspiring ideas of the brain that changes itself is this. You are not a prisoner of your story. You can also become the author of... Now imagine someone who has struggled with procrastination for years. They think, I am lazy. But what is the reality? Maybe they aren't lazy. Maybe their brain has simply become an expert at delaying things. And now, here is another deep truth. Many people in the world keep collecting knowledge, another book, another video, another course, but their lives don't change. Why? Now imagine that from today, you choose just one powerful habit and repeat it for the next 6 months. What happens? A small change on day 1, a small change in the first week, a small change in the first month. But then, the compound effect begins. And slowly, your brain starts treating that new identity. Now, here is another powerful realization. Your brain is not your enemy. It is not working against you. It is simply strengthening whatever you repeatedly use. If you use fear, fear becomes stronger. If you use courage, now imagine your 5 years from now self looking back at you today and asking you only one question. Did you give your brain a chance? Did you give yourself a chance to change? Did you give new wiring enough time to develop, or did you give up before the new wiring had a chance to become strong? Now, if this video has given you not just knowledge, but a new possibility, don't let it end here, because maybe there is someone else who needs to know that they are not broken. Their brain may simply be waiting to be retrained. You can subscribe to the BookBuzz channel, because here you won't just... Now, one final thought. If you truly want to understand how the brain changes, how habits are formed, how identity transforms, and how science can give us hope, then you should definitely read this book. But don't read it as if you're simply here to collect information. The link to the book is in the description. But don't open it as if you are about to read just another self-help book. Open it as if you were about to meet your future self. The version of you that is focused, confident, adaptable, and